Welcome. We're back. About to start a new week. Interesting things going on. Looking at a bunch of charts today. Looked at like literally hundreds of charts earlier. And I definitely have a thesis on a lot of different things. But to really start things off, I want to take a look at what futures are doing. They're kind of just flat for now. They were green for a little bit. Now they're like kind of reddish. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm going to talk a lot more about the stock market in like 15-20 minutes probably. But what I want to talk about first, well, not 15-20 minutes, like in 5 minutes I'll talk about stocks. I want to talk about Bitcoin first. And Bitcoin's been selling off quite a bit. I mean, it really all started right over here when it was creating this upsloping channel like this. So it had this upsloping channel. It was kind of right over here, was around the bottom of the channel, kind of breaking it a little bit. And then Elon Musk put out a tweet talking about, Tesla and Bitcoin. And then you had a very big, flash pullback crash. I don't think it was a crash, but you had a quick pullback. You fell 10%. Now you've also just been dropping more and more. And you pretty much hit the newest lows on Bitcoin. Today, let me see since when. So today on Bitcoin is the lowest Bitcoin has been since the 2nd of March. So in pretty much over 2 months, you're your lowest prices on Bitcoin. And I think it looks pretty interesting. So the title of the stream is there's like, is there a bullish pattern on Bitcoin? And this kind of is it. So I was just looking around trying to find something, and it kind of looks like we have a right-angled descending broadening formation, however you want to call it, where you have this clear supply zone between like 59 to 60k, which you've rejected like 5 different times here, and here. That's like your very clear supply zone, and now you're creating this downsloping demand line where you now have your third touch, which kind of like confirms the pattern because now you have 5 touches. So on Bitcoin, you have a pretty big pattern. It's over like a month and a half long, and it's a pretty real pattern. I don't know if I'm ready to put out a trade on Bitcoin. You just did put in like a 4-hour hammer candle. It was close to a hammer. Not going to really measure it or anything, but pretty close to a 4-hour hammer candle. Now you're getting some, 2% pullback. So the issue here, not really the issue, but what I'm waiting for on Bitcoin is hopefully some divergence. It is possible on the daily to eventually get classic bullish divergence, but that needs to start developing before we can really, talk about it. But if we start seeing this MACD wane on the daily, I think it looks good. I mean, you're at a support area. Let me zoom out again. You're at this previous support from the end of February, and it was also your resistance in the beginning of this year. You're very close to that support zone. You have a demand line, you have a bullish pattern. All I'm hoping for is divergence, which on the daily, it is possible to get divergence on both the MACD and the RSI. And on the 4-hour, we're already starting to show some classic bullish divergence where you're making higher lows on your RSI, but lower lows on price. So I think Bitcoin is starting to finally look good ever since that, 54k place where it dumped or pulled back 10%. And as long as we can get some divergence on the daily, I think Bitcoin might not easily, but I think based on technicals, there's a good chance for this to run back up to at least test 59k again within a month, give or take. I mean, I don't know the exact time frame, but I'd probably look at it something like this, just target the supply zone for the first target, throw the stop loss under this support zone, get it 3 reward to risk very, very easily. And then second target, I'd probably just copy and paste this. Let me move it down some. Let's see. Second target, I'd probably just use Fibonacci. So depending on where we actually start reversing at, maybe somewhere around 70k. That's also pretty psychological. And I think if it can hold this area, which you have about like a 2 to 4% area in which I'm looking for a bounce to the downside. If it can hold this range and start putting in some divergence, I think Bitcoin looks pretty good. But obviously we're waiting on a lot more things to occur, so we'll see what happens. I really wouldn't call this a head and shoulders on Bitcoin to answer your question. I definitely do see what you're talking about, the left shoulder, the head, the right shoulder, but the neckline will be very unclear. I mean, maybe you want to call this first support zone your neckline, but I mean, this is really where you've been bouncing at. So regardless, if you do break this white demand line, you're probably screwed. and the stop loss will be under that. But I just think it's a low risk, high reward opportunity if we can get some more confirmation, which I'm waiting on. So we'll see what happens. Might even have to look at the 4-hour for a better entry. Maybe if we retest this mini channel demand line, which also lines up with the demand line from the end of March and is pretty close to this horizontal support, like in this area right over here, I might be putting out a trade on Bitcoin. So let me actually set up an alert there, and if we ever need to come back to it, we will tonight. But let's talk about stocks for, half an hour or so. And I'll just set an alert on Bitcoin. All right. So there we go. That's Bitcoin. We'll see what happens. Futures relatively flat. They started off green. They were up like 1/3%. Then they fell to like being down 1/3%. Now they're just down like 0.10%. So they're okay for now. Last week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday were like the worst 3 days for the stock market since I think October. And then on Thursday, we got a bounce in the indices just because a lot of large caps were up a couple percent. Thursday didn't even feel like a green day last week. It was just like, it looked like a green day, but so many stocks were still down. But then Friday was like a very, very good day. Friday was one of the best days for the market in a very long time, in my opinion, where a lot of the recent trend has been, we've been getting obviously higher highs and higher lows on the S&P 500, but a lot of growth stocks have just been dumping ever since like the beginning of March. But Friday, there were so many growth stocks up 10% and higher. It just felt like one of the first times in a while where like everything was up, like 90% of sectors were in the green. Very good action, a lot of continuation. A lot of the times we've been seeing, especially for the growth stocks, they've been getting the bounces, but they get no continuation. Then they just sell off to make a lower low and a lower high. But I'll show you some growth stocks that I'm looking at. I already shared like over 20 stocks on my watch list with the premium members. I'll show you about 5 also on the stream, where you're seeing huge harmonic patterns with divergence at very important ice lines or major historical support areas. It looks really interesting if you're looking at growth stocks. In terms of the actual indices, the S&P 500, the Russell, and the NASDAQ, I think it's a little bit unclear for now. We had a very volatile week last week if we go out to the weekly candle on the S&P. I mean, you don't really have much of a signal here. Not a great looking setup on the weekly. You do have some bearish divergence developing on the MACD and on the RSI, like major bearish divergence, but that's the weekly, can take a long time to play out. And we technically have been showing this bearish divergence on the weekly since like March. So we're still going up on the indices overall. We'll see what happens eventually. If we're going to zoom into the S&P 500, hidden bullish divergence on the daily is possible if we continue moving upwards. We'll see what happens. If we really zoom in, you can see that we're also pretty close to a gap fill from last week. We gapped down on Monday. So we got very close to filling Monday's gap on Friday, but we never did. So if we do have a nice move tomorrow, we're probably going to fill that. And we'll see what happens. So that's the S&P 500. Another important level, if we go down to the 1 hour, is right here, 41.76. You kind of closed right at it, but that was your support from like the end of April. Pretty much, yeah, throughout the end of April, that was your support. And now you're kind of using it as resistance, which is pretty interesting. But that's the S&P 500. Let's look at the Russell 2000, which was one of the best trades last week. If you're a premium member, I shared call options with you. They went up like 40-something%, I believe, off the top of my head. This was like the best looking setup that I saw all of last week. And it was on the 1 hour. It wasn't even on a large time frame, but you had a bullish cipher with a double bottom at the PCZ, a falling wedge, classic bullish divergence on the RSI. It looked so good. And I really think this is where the market overall started bouncing. Even the NASDAQ looked good at the same time. It also had a falling wedge with the double bottom and divergence, but no harmonic. And then the S&P was just kind of back testing previous support zones from the beginning of April. And that's where we bounced. It was a very technical bounce in my opinion. We got extremely oversold on the indices pretty much at Wednesday on the close. We were very oversold. If you look at the RSI, I mean, that was the lowest level on the RSI you've been at since October, like I said earlier. So I think it was a very technical bounce. We did actually bounce more than I expected. On Friday, we had a very nice day. The NASDAQ was up 2%. The Russell was up 2.5%. It was great. But at this point, like now we already put in the bounce. And if you do look at the 1 hour, hidden bearish divergence is now possible. So like there are so many different contradicting variables on the indices that I'm just going to be neutral going into the week. I mean, there's a bull case and a bear case on different time frames on different indices. So it's a little bit tough to get like a real thesis on the overall indices going into the week. Even the futures are relatively flat. So that's the S&P. We talked about the Russell for a little bit, and then the NASDAQ got crushed. I mean, NASDAQ dropped insanely quickly. That's like the right way to say it. But the NASDAQ dropped 9% pretty much in May as of Wednesday. And then obviously on Thursday and Friday it bounced. But a 9% move in 2 weeks on the NASDAQ is like pretty much a correction. That is a market correction for tech, at least. I think 10% is when you're officially in a correction, but just how quickly that happened was very, very strange. Obviously, it crushed 99% of the swing trades last week. Most of them got stopped out. But we're starting to bounce after getting that falling wedge. And again, if you're in the Discord, when we were literally at the session lows on the market last week, I alerted everybody that we were getting very bullish signals, at least on the low time frames. And ever since that alert, from pretty much Thursday to Friday, we had a very nice bounce for the indices. So those are technicals. They played out very, very nicely to give us the bounce. But at this point, like they've already played out. You've already achieved like your golden retraces of these patterns. As you can see, we hit the 50% mark, which is pretty much the way to target a falling wedge. We hit that on both the NASDAQ and the Russell. So pretty neutral going into the week. We'll see what happens tomorrow at the open. Overall, neutral, but if we're talking about growth stocks, I'm bullish. And I know I've been saying that for some time now, and last week was obviously very, very tough. And it's really been tough to get these growth stocks out of their bear markets, because if we look at the S&P and the NASDAQ for pretty much obviously ever since the COVID crash, but especially ever since March 5th, which is when we were at the bottom of the wedge, we've been in a very, very up-ticking market on the major indices. But if you're in growth stocks, you can't really tell that, because growth stocks have been dumping ever since March. They never recovered with the S&P 500. So ever since really the end of February, they've just been on a downtrend if we're looking at the ARK ETF, which is kind of what I'm going to start using to track growth stocks and those newer SPACs and EVs and some of the gambling stocks and a bunch of things. It's not the best because obviously it changes over time. But a lot of the stocks that is in the ARK, in this ARK ETF, do relate to the stocks that I'm talking about most of the time. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I know it was not an official correction, Cheddar Freeze. I was just saying that just how quickly it happened kind of felt like it was 1% away from a correction, and it happened in 2 weeks. So I'm just going to call it a correction. I don't care what the textbooks say. That was a very rough Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But looking at ARK, it's kind of looking bullish. I mean, you had this first bullish bat pattern that actually did play out. I think either the Lump or Neutron Flux Labs I think it was Neutron Flux Labs that brought this up, that played out. And then right after that bullish bat, you created a bullish crab, and you pretty much got to the PCZ, the 2618, and you started bouncing. This is another thing that I was sharing with everybody. Even on Friday in the afternoon, there was like this 30-minute cup and handle, which gave a nice close. Looks good. Finally, you're even breaking a supply line. So this growth ETF looks pretty good. We'll see how that relates to a lot of other growth stocks. I'm about to show you just a few of the growth stocks that I looked at today. I scanned about like 250 tickers, came out with about like 30 of them that looked really, really good. And I'm going to show you a few of them right now. We're obviously going to be talking about Fisker, which has earnings tomorrow. I think Clover also has earnings tomorrow. XL has earnings tomorrow. Those are three very common X SPACs. And Cheddar Freeze, I forgot which ETF has Fisker in it. I think the actual SPAC ETF, I don't know if they still do, but at one point the SPAK ETF did have Fisker in it. I remember how like DraftKings, I can't remember all of them, but it had a lot of them in it. And this looks pretty similar to ARK. The SPAC ETF actually hit all-time lows last week and then started bouncing. But let's talk about growth stocks. I'll get to Fisker. Let's do Fisker first, and then we'll talk more about the other things that I was looking for or looking at today when I was scanning. That's Sundial, wrong one. Let's go to Fisker. All right, so let's look at Fisker for a second here. Let's take a look at the chat. We'll do take requests in like 15-20 minutes. I just want to talk about a few more things. Rotation is definitely a possibility where tech, ever since tech was running up like crazy up until earnings, and then tech ever since earnings. Even though a lot of tech stocks beat, they've just not been performing well. So rotation back into growth stocks is possible and could be a part of this thesis. But we'll see. Yep, S&P futures do have hidden bearish divergence. S&P actually by itself on the lower time frames does have hidden bearish divergence developing. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. And then there was one more thing I was looking at just to finish off the market. Even before we get into Fisker, what was it? I think it was on the NASDAQ. Yeah, wait, did I not chart it? I don't think I did. All right, so whatever I charted before the stream did not save, but I just want to finish off the market talk. The VIX is back under 19.6. If you watched any of last week's streams, I kept talking about this reversal area on the VIX, which is a very historical area for the VIX to reverse. And what happened? It got up to that reversal area, literally touched it, and then it pulled back like crazy. It was down 19% on Friday alone. So again, the bounce that we had at the end of the last week was very, very technical. I alerted the Discord that the NASDAQ and the Russell were looking really, really good. Also, I was sharing the VIX, showing that it was at a reversal area, the same area it was when the S&P was at the bottom of the wedge on March 4th, right? So on March 4th, when we were having that dip, pretty much from the end of February, the VIX was at that 30-ish level, and that's when it pulled back and the market rallied. And then the VIX was back to that 30-ish level last week when we were dipping, and then the VIX pulled back and the market rallied. So we got to the perfect areas on a lot of different indices and indicators that allowed the market to bounce at the end of last week. And hopefully the VIX can stay under 19.6 because that was a support in the past towards the beginning of the year. The Dow Jones kind of just in the middle of nowhere. I mean, not much to say about that. The US 10-year yield, I like that it's back under 164. Hopefully it can stay under that, but we'll see what happens. The dollar, still developing classic bullish divergence. We'll see what happens there. I know it looks like a trend line's being created, maybe like an ascending broadening wedge or something like that. It's kind of weird looking. But let's talk about Fisker now. So I'm going to talk about Fisker, but I'm going to talk about maybe 5-6 other stocks I just want to share with everybody that are on my watch list. Then after we do that, we could, do take a request and just kind of have some fun. But let's just recap some of the ongoing trades. Then I'll give you my watch list and we'll do take requests. So first one is Fisker. Had the big pop on Thursday after hours on the Foxconn news. It was up like 20%. It was over $12 after hours. And then right at the open on Friday, Fisker, it just started pulling back and it dropped like crazy. It fell from pretty much $11.80 down to $10. And yeah, it was a very rough pullback. I had a lot of options. Actually, pretty much all throughout last week, I was scaling into options on Fisker. And then on Friday morning, the options opened up like at 100% profit. And immediately I took half my profits on them. So I still have half of my calls going into tomorrow on Fisker. I already took out my costs, so I'm just playing with the house's money for now. But we'll see what happens. I think we really pushed up to a technical level, which is 1168. If I go over to the weekly, you can see 1168 was your support over here. It was where your candle opened over here. And we kind of used that as resistance for like the first time ever on Friday. Pulled back there. Never technically filled the gap on the 1 hour. You got pretty close to filling the gap on the 1 hour. But on the 4 hour and the daily, you did fill. Actually, on the 4 hour, you didn't. So you want 10.05 would be the gap fill, which you didn't fill on the 4 hour. But on the daily, which is really where you care about the gaps, you don't really have a gap on the daily. So I guess that's okay. And yeah, you had a big pullback. I think it was a combination of two things. One, just bag holders. There's a lot of bag holders in this stock. I think the average cost price is like 15 according to Weeble's data. So obviously they were trying to cut their losses on the bounce. Then also it's just the fact that it's a news event. A lot of news events tend to be pumps and dumps on Fisker. This was a pump and dump in hindsight, and there was a lot of catalysts that happened over here, and then it came all the way back down. This over here, also there were catalysts on the way up, and it came about halfway back down, or 61% of the way back down. That was a golden retrace that consolidated at for like a month and a half. And we did the same thing, it's no surprise. I was hoping for a continuation on Friday, never got it, but again, it already popped so much that I was able to take a nice amount of profits, and the trade's still in profit by a little bit. And then from a technical standpoint, it's still fine. Regardless of the fall on Friday on Fisker, you still did reverse at the PCZ of a bullish butterfly that we identified well before the catalyst last week. You still do have classic bullish divergence developing on the daily on the MACD and RSI. So 4-hour bullish divergence on the RSI. And technically, if you look at it now, it's kind of like you double bottomed around the PCZ. So let me fix my audio. Thank you very much for the tip. All right, hopefully that's good. Fab with the $5 donation. What's up, buddy? Great stuff as always in both stream and Discord. Can we look at Nano Dimension when you get a chance? Would you consider cup and handle on the weekly? Sure, we'll take a look at it next. Thank you very much for the 5. And yeah, I forgot to mention, if you did not know, I dropped a 1-hour video today on options. People have been asking me to make an options video in DMs on stream chat for like 3 or 4 months. And I always have said that I didn't want to put out an options video until I really started. How did I word it? Like, I didn't want to put out an options video until I was really experienced in them. I don't like educating on things that I'm not super familiar with. So like 4 or 5 months ago, when people were asking me to do an options video, I was just beginning options. So I didn't really want to do a video then, and I just kept on saying, in a few months, I'll probably put one out. Kind of procrastinated it for a little bit because obviously options are a little bit complicated and it does take a long time to make a video on options. But I just banged it out last night. It took me about like 4 hours to make a 1-hour video. And I put it out today. So if you didn't watch the options video and you're interested in options, it's the last video on my channel. So check it out after the stream or whenever you have time. A lot of info in there. It was like, I started off with just giving the basics on options. And then I just gave a lot of tips and tricks in my personal process with options. But just wanted to mention that. And yeah, let's look at NNDM for Fab. Then we'll continue talking about the trades. So you said cup and handle on the weekly. Let's go over to the weekly. I don't think so. Now, I get what you're saying. Definitely, you do have a rounding bottom from here to here. So yeah, you do have a rounding bottom for sure. But this is just too steep for a handle. Bukowski says that the best handles on cup and handles are the short handles because it shows that the bears cannot bring down the price that much. And one thing that Mitch Ray has talked about a few times is you typically don't want your handles to go under a 50% retrace. Because if you go more than halfway back down from your previous swing low to swing high of the rounding bottom, it just kind of invalidates the idea of a cup and handle, right? So like at this point, it's even closer to a double bottom than a cup and handle. And I'm not saying it's a double bottom. Obviously, it's a long way down to go, which is going to be very hard to get it down that far. But I wouldn't really look at it as a cup and handle on the weekly. Just too steep of a fall. If we go over to the daily though, let's see. Pretty close to bullish divergence. I mean, it's not perfect by any means. Kind of like the same level of negative momentum, even like a little bit of an increased level of negative momentum. So not too sure here, even on the RSI, you're gonna have to be ignoring that low, which is a pretty real low. So I'm not too sure about this one. I'm just gonna be straightforward with you. You're under the 200-day moving average. Maybe you want to look at it something like this in terms of a structure, which still is not like, you only have 2 touches on the top. It's a little bit tough. Let's see if we can find any supports. You're also under a major level, which is 675. It was your lows from March of 2019, and then it was also your support back in the middle of April. So I want to see this get back above 680, which would be, you'd be reclaiming your 200-day moving average, you'd be getting back above support, and then your MACD would probably cross over to green. So I think it definitely has some work that it needs to put in terms of like a harmonic. That's a really perfect double top, so I don't think it could be like an actual textbook harmonic. Also, B is not really deep enough. It's not a 382. So I mean, you got near the 886 and the 2618 Fibonacci sequences, which is good by itself regardless of a harmonic. Just the XABCD movement. So it definitely has potential. I would just like to see it do a little bit more, if that makes sense. Thank you again for the 5. So that's Nano Dimension. Let's get back to the ongoing trades. I put out a few of them for everybody on Friday. One of them is IPOE. And this one looks pretty interesting to me. It's starting to show some classic bullish divergence on the daily, just a little bit. It's nothing major, but on the 4-hour, I believe it does look better. The classic bullish divergence, where you made the lower lows on price with less levels of negative momentum. and then a higher low on your RSI. And then this is a very important level, 1471, which was your candle low on March 4th when the S&P was at the bottom of the wedge. It was where you bottomed at towards the end of April. And you fell under it for a little bit last week when the market was very volatile, but you reclaimed it, which is what I really like to see. So IPOE is one thing I alerted on Friday. Another thing is XPV, which we actually did trade this first bounce. When it was right over here, it was like the same exact thesis. We traded it, it started pulling back, started showing some hidden bearish divergence on lower time frames, and I just cut the trade for like a, can't remember, probably like a 15% profit. It never got to my initial targets that I was hoping for, but we still walked away with profit on that. And then it kind of just fell with the rest of growth in the last month or so. But now it's back at that same area, and I like how it reclaimed over $25, that low from March 5th when the S&P was at the bottom of the wedge. And then if we go over to the 4-hour, you have some nice classic bullish divergence, which is confirmed. You even have a descending broadening wedge that it broke out of, which looks very clear on the 1-hour chart, which also has triple classic bullish divergence on the MACD and the RSI. So that's the idea here on XPV. A lot of growth stocks look just like this. I mean, it's at an ice line. It was your high over here, your lows over there, you're back above it. You have a major harmonic with an ice line with divergence. I literally have 30 tickers on my watch list that look just like this. And the premium members, I sent you like a slideshow of all those tickers because I couldn't type them all in the Discord chat. And I'm going to show you all like another, 5 or 6 in a few minutes here that I haven't really dropped yet. Next one, IPGP. I put this out, I think, earlier last week when the market was falling. It was just pretty nice where you had a pattern completion zone of a bullish bat and a pattern completion zone of a bullish crab lining up at an ice line, which used to be a resistance over here. You flipped it into support, got a nice bounce. Trade starting off nicely, even had some classic bullish divergence on the RSI. PGRE really hasn't done much in like forever. This was initially supposed to be a swing trade, but it's done not much for like a month and a half. Kind of looking like a little bit strange, I don't know, on this one. If it goes back down to the entry, I'm just going to make it a break-even trade regardless, so we'll see what happens. And then finally, SPG went back over to the entry after getting stop hunted, and it does have hidden bearish divergence, but that can easily be invalidated. So again, we'll see what happens on this one, but I don't know yet. We'll see. Futures still relatively flat. Bitcoin is dipping more. Bitcoin's now under 45K. So it might be providing an entry soon. Again, like I said in the beginning of the stream, have the right angled descending broadening wedge or descending broadening formation. And I'm just waiting for hopefully some more divergence to appear and for us to enter this demand zone where you have 3 different levels of support. If that happens, I might be putting out a trade on Bitcoin. So I have an alert set up. We'll see if it hits it. Now Bitcoin's down about 3.5% in the last hour and a half. And let's talk about I did about an hour and a half of scanning today, looked at like 250 tickers. And usually when I look at like 200 tickers, I only find like 10 that look really good. Today I found like 30, which just goes to show that the growth sector in stocks is really starting to heat up. And you had a huge day for growth on Friday where so many growth stocks are up over 10%. I had a huge day on a few options trades that I talked about in the options video that I dropped today, if you want to check it out. But yeah, looking at a lot of growth stocks. They all went up so much on Friday, which means that I'm hoping for a little bit of a dip because I don't like buying something after it just went up 10%. I like getting in before the big moves. So I haven't alerted any of these officially. I'm just waiting for some pullbacks. Maybe if the market will allow that, maybe it won't. Maybe we do have to buy higher, but I mean, does it really matter? Like for an example, if you look at Blink was up 15% on Friday. Looks really good, just like other growth stocks. And at the same time, who cares if it was up 15%? Because look how much it's dropped. I mean, all of the growth stocks just look the same. So I'll just wait and see what the market gives us this week. Maybe we do have to be buying after the 15% moves to get into these growth stocks that are looking good. Maybe we can get a pullback, which would allow for a better reward to risk on trades. But like I said, like 3 times, I literally have 30 tickers on my watch list that are showing major harmonics with bullish divergence at critical supports. And the last time I remember seeing all these on growth stocks was back in October. And pretty much November, December, January were like the most incredible bull markets for growth stocks, where so many of them went up like 2x, 3x, 4x. It was crazy. And then ever since like March, the growth stocks have been dumping. So maybe we do get a rotation, maybe we don't, but regardless, there's opportunities that are presenting themselves, and it's low risk, high reward opportunities at the end of the day. So, you know, obviously nothing I say is financial advice, but I do think that a lot of these charts look good, and we'll see. It's going to be hard for them to get out of their downtrends because there's a lot of bag holders in a lot of these stocks that used to have a lot of hype, and there's obviously a lot of shorting going on, and even the indices are kind of 50-50. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered. But if we're going to be straightforward and just talk about the charts and what I'm seeing, I'm going to show you 6 tickers right now that I found scanning today out of like the 30, but we'll see. All right, so the first one's going to be Plug. And this one has that's quadruple classic bullish divergence on the daily, which is obviously very, very nice. It's also, it already bounced at the PCZ of it didn't really get to like the textbook PCZ. It should have went a little bit lower, but that's just where it reversed at. So it bounced around the PCZ of a bullish bat that was like literally 7 or 8 months large. This is a major pattern. It bounced at that area with the divergence. I think on the 4-hour you also have nice divergence. No, not on this one. So you have daily divergence, and if you can also look, this 1885 level that it bounced at last week used to be a swing high back from October of last year, before that dip in October. Yeah, that's number 1, Plug. We'll see what happens. It was already up a lot on Friday, so I'm hoping for a dip. Charge Point's another one where you have a very similar structure compared to Plug, pretty much like a bullish bat, but obviously you didn't get down to the 886. It just kind of came down to the 0.83 retrace, and that's just where you reverse that 1, 2, now 3 potential times. So at what point is it going to actually just send it after bouncing off of this area? You can see it very, very clearly. You don't really have bullish divergence because you made a higher low, but you do have bullish convergence where you made a higher low on your oscillators and on the price. Try and go to the 4-hour. Same exact thing, bullish convergence. It's just a very clear support zone, which is why the stop loss is under it. And you've shown demand here 3 different times. You had nice rallies. The first target would just be the same high as the previous one. The second target would be the second previous swing high. And those are not even textbook targets. I mean, textbook targets would be all the way up here. Let me move this. All the way up here and here. And that would be insane if those hit. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But even these like little targets are 25 to 40% profit. And that's just the opportunity that I'm talking about. These growth stocks got crushed so horribly that now, even if you just do like half of what a textbook target would actually be, you can come away with a nice return. So that's CHPT, Charge Point. We already did look at Nano Dimension earlier in the stream for Fab. And we're not doing ticker requests yet. I'm just talking about some things that I found scanning today. Another one, which looks the same exact as 100 other growth stocks, is FCEL. Pretty much in the same industries, the last 2, Charge Point and Plug, and FCEL and Blink. All of them have good looking charts, and they're all in the similar sectors, EVs and charging. Another huge harmonic pattern, pretty much a bullish Garley. Again, none of these are like super textbook, but they're close enough. I mean, and you're getting reactions in the areas where you want to be getting reactions at. So you were up 9% on Friday, which is again why I'm waiting for a dip. Hopefully, maybe we never get it. But you reversed at the 1618 from B to D. Also kind of close to the 786. It was a little bit deeper. But you have triple classic bullish divergence on the MACD. You have bullish divergence on the RSI on the daily. On the 4-hour, you have classic bullish divergence on the MACD and the RSI. I mean, how many growth stocks are giving us harmonics and just an insane amount of bullish divergence? Like literally half of them. Not literally, but you get what I'm saying. It's just insane. This sector looks so good right now. All the charts look the same that I've been scanning. So we'll see if these play out. I mean, typically these types of large structures in the stock market do play out. They were studied in the stock market back in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And these things, they're not certainty, but they're higher probability patterns. That's the easiest way to put it. Another one, DMTK, a little bit of a different industry, but same exact thing. Super mega large bullish Gartley, where you got the 786. You already got a bounce at the 786. Classic bullish divergence on the 4-hour MACD and RSI. Classic bullish divergence on the daily MACD. And I'm just kind of like saying this simply, but people need to start understanding like how insane this is. Like if this was just like a regular week and I saw any one of these charts, I would be amazed. But all of the charts are showing this. It's insane. Like from a technical trader's standpoint, what we're seeing on so many of these stocks is the same exact beautiful setup. And yes, the sector is under a lot of selling pressure, which we did not see on Friday, but we've been seeing for the past 2 months. But these are the types of patterns that you can only get by a lot of selling pressure and major retraces. And then these are the patterns that can reverse those major retraces, which we've seen time and time again in the market. So another one, DMTK, Blink I already showed you kind of, but this is another interesting one. Classic bullish divergence. It's just kind of reversing over here. Not super textbook, but an XABCD structure regardless. You can look at it in a few different ways. I think I was talking to 5150, he was giving me some of his input on this one. A lot of classic bullish divergence at a previous support area and the 200-day moving average is there. And I forgot to mention, so many of these growth stocks are at the 200-day moving average as well. Look, DMTK, perfect bounce at the 200-day moving average. FCL's under it, charge point's under it, plug is under it. So those are a little bit under, but a lot of these things are just harmonic, divergence, support, 200-day moving average, literally everything you could possibly ask for on a trade, except there's dozens of things showing this. It's not there's only one chart showing this. Dozens of charts are showing the same exact thing in the same sectors. So what does that tell you? It tells you the psychology of traders. That's what technicals do. And these technicals are displaying that this really bad bear market for growth and SPACs and EVs and pot stocks might be coming to not a close, but at least a bounce area where we could get some nice trades. So I showed you Blink and then another one, DNMR. I think I've shown this on stream before. And it already did start reversing. It was up 10% on Friday. Triple classic bullish divergence on the daily. Similar XABCD structure. You could look at it in a few different ways, but you get the Fibonacci sequences, the structures, whether you want to call it a Gartley or kind of a little bit deep for a bat on the B point, but you get the point. You're already getting reactions where you want to see reactions with divergence. And I literally have another 25 stocks, but I'm saving a lot of them for the premium members, which premium trades did not go too well last week with all the volatility, so I'm trying to help out as much as I can after a very good like month and a half for premium trades, but we'll see what happens. That's only 6 of them. There are so many other ones that I'm looking at, and hopefully they can confirm, hopefully they can actually let these trades play out after we've had a very, very rough market for a lot of these sectors. But it's not that hard for you to go and find your own stocks that look just like this. Like literally look up half of the growth stocks, look for the XABCDs, look at the divergence, all the things that I teach you on stream. It was truly not, it's usually hard to find things that look like this, but today it was a piece of cake finding things that look like this. Usually it takes me hours and hours and hours to find these types of charts, but I found all these like literally right away, right when I started scanning. And it was just like non-stop. I couldn't believe it. I should have done it on stream, but I was just kind of chilling out after I put out the options video earlier. But I'm showing it to you now. And I don't know how many times I've said this. These are major things. I wouldn't be sitting here and hyping this up if I did not see the importance of this. And I'm just sharing that with all of you. Maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, but they're low risk, high reward opportunities. And that's that. So we'll see. All right. That covers pretty much everything I wanted to talk about coming into the stream. Futures are back to flat. Futures started off green, then they went to red. Now they're back to flat. They're pretty much completely even. S&P futures are at 0%, or the NASDAQ futures are at 0%. S&P futures are down like literally nothing. And Bitcoin continuing to pull back another few $100. Why did the MACD disappear? What? Oh, all right, there it is. Bitcoin getting close to where I want it for a trade setup. That doesn't mean it's for sure going to go up. It just means I see a low risk, high reward opportunity like I see on the growth stocks, which I keep saying, but who knows, maybe it just doesn't work out. But I'm going to be giving a lot of these stocks opportunities. Hopefully we can get some dips though, because they already went up like a lot on Friday, but we'll see what happens. There are still questions that need to be answered. Like I said, we still need to see how these growth stocks perform when the indices pull back, because they did not perform well when the indices pulled back last week. So we need to start seeing them actually outperform the major indices. They've just been heavily underperforming the major indices for the past 2.5 months. So we're not at like the finish line, but I think like we're in a place where things are looking good. All right. Now let me look at the chat. I haven't talked to you guys in a minute. I'm just showing you all these insane charts. I'm gonna have tea. So yeah, I'm gonna be streaming for a little bit longer for sure. We have a lot to talk about. I'll do ticker requests in probably like 5 minutes, not yet. So like I always say on the streams, if you're new to the stream, you want me to take a look at a ticker for you, just wait until I say we're actually doing the ticker requests. So I don't want you to be typing and then you feel like I'm just not answering you, because I have a lot of things I want to go over, and then I always make time to do the ticker requests. But yeah, thank you for the 44 people showing up tonight. That's another indicator. For the past few weeks, we've been having like 25 people in the streams, just because the market's been so bad. But we got like double the viewership we've been getting tonight, which is another signal. Even the Discord got botted. The Discord was only getting botted when we were in like the height of the bull market, and last week the Discord got botted twice. Last week was like one of the first times ever in my trading career that I like got emotional because of how rough things were. Like so many trades were getting stopped out. I mean, personally I was fine, but I was like pretty mad that like not even half, like 70% of the trades got stopped out in like 2 days. So there's a lot of different indicators, even the fear and greed index. Let me show you this. All right, let's look at this. Look at this. This is like the first time that this has shown this like this whole entire year. I mean, I'm not 100% certain about that, but all the times I've looked at this, like in January, February, March, it was like around over here. Now we're starting to show fear in the market. And what does fear provide? Opportunity. When people are scared, usually there's a lot of opportunity. When people are greedy, it's usually when things like last week happen. So this has been pulling back very, very quickly. I put out a few tweets about it. There's just so many different indicators, especially in the growth sector. And I'm just trying to share that with all of you. So to everybody who's watching the stream, that's the heads up. Just manage your risk. Even if it doesn't work out, you got a position size, stop losses, everything. Because we're not, like I said, we're not across the finish line just yet. June CPI numbers are expected for second worst. I have seen a couple of chats about inflation fears. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely still a topic. I'm not like an economist or anything, but I think it's pretty clear that we have been seeing inflation starting. We don't know if it's going to be transitory like some people are saying, or if it's going to be lasting. But it's definitely a concern. You cannot ignore it. A few different things that are, we'll see what happens. Obviously, reopenings. Another thing that's pretty interesting to me is a lot of growth stocks were like just pumping and pumping and pumping when everything was closed up. All right. So if you remember, like, last summer, last fall, when most things were closed up with COVID and everything, that's when a lot of these stocks were going insanely high through the roof, like 2x, 3x in weeks. And now that we're starting to reopen, ever since we've been starting to reopen and the vaccines are rolling out for the past 2 months, a lot of those same stocks are now dumping. It's like the inverse of what you would think, right? Usually you'd think that when the whole entire economy is closed, we'd be in a bad market. But last year we had an amazing market after the COVID crash. And now that we're starting to reopen, we're getting these weird pulls in the market. It's just very interesting, that inverse correlation that we've been seeing for some time. I don't know if anybody's thought about that, but I've thought about that a few times. Let's see. Lumber, copper, materials, gold, metals. Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Brad. I think a lot of those look good as well. Yeah, a lot of the industrials have been crushing it too. I think a lot of those hype stocks from December and January, they've just been dumping for the past 2 months. But if you look at the Dow Jones, it's been heavily outperforming in the last like month and a half, while those have been dumping. Definitely agree with your points. I'm just saying I think there can be rotation soon if these technicals that play out about 75% of the time, if they do that, then we can see a rotation. Options video was great. Became premium member after watching it. Oh my gosh, Jordan, thank you. Appreciate that very, very much. And thank you to all the premium members. We're getting very close to 100 premium members, which I can't even believe. Really appreciate all the support. Awesome. Who else is in the chat? We're gonna do tick requests in like literally 5 minutes. I just want to cover everything I wanted to, because obviously a lot of things are going on. We'll do tick requests very soon. cost for premium is, if you're going to do monthly, it's $30 for your first month, and then it's $25 every month that you renew. So the price actually goes down for every month after your first month. And then if you're doing annual, it's going to be 10% off. So whatever the cost for the whole entire year would be if you paid monthly, you're getting a 10% discount rate on that if you're going to do annual. DraftKings, yeah, that was a really good, that was my best trade of the week last week, DraftKings, because I got some pretty, I'm not going to say YOLO options, but high risk, high reward options, and they ended up playing out. DraftKings went up like 10% on Friday. The options I were in went up like 90%. DraftKings and Fisker options definitely saved my week last week. I had a green week last week. It wasn't green on Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday, I had a Facebook trade that worked out very well, an AMD trade that did not work out well, but then Fisker had a huge run, DraftKings had a huge run, BlackBerry had a huge run. I had like a nice little hat trick on options trades to close out the week that really helped me out. Your premium member, I shared all of those with you except for Facebook. I couldn't share Facebook because like literally the second I got in, it already went up like 15%, so it was like too late. But all the other trades, I try to share everything I personally do with the premium members. We're gonna do take requests, 2 or 3 minutes. Just looking at the chat. Yeah, you want to keep the options spread tight. Take a look at the options video if you didn't. Because last week when things were not really swingable, I was just day trading options all week and it worked out pretty well. CPI will increase until Fed extra employment ends. Unemployment ends. Employers can't find workers unless they pay huge wages. Too many getting paid, more not to work. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things going on. I mean, inflation, CPI numbers, talking about taxes increasing, a lot of different things, even like people having to pay their taxes. So a lot of different things going on fundamentally for sure, which the markets tell you the truth always. I do not do advanced option strategies. Probably will at some point, but currently just longing calls and longing puts has worked out pretty well for me. So I'm just sticking to that. Once I feel like I want to learn more and more, I'll probably start learning. I always have to learn more, but I like to just keep my methods simple. I don't have it too crazy of a trading method. It's just like I like to have a few things that are very, very solid, like the divergence and the patterns and things like that. And I just like to trade off those, but I want like the highest quality of those indicators. But for spreads, I don't really do anything other than long calls and long puts. I don't do, the condors and the straddles and even covered calls. I don't really mess with selling calls or puts. But do you just post options for them? Do you also post stocks? Oh, premium. I post options. I post, what's it called? I post swing trades is really what premium started as. Just me putting out, really when I went from just like everything to premium, the idea was I was gonna pretty much try and put out the same amount of regular swing trades for all the non-premium members, which is what I have been doing. But I'm just gonna work extra overtime to put out even more trades for premium members. So that's really what it started out as. But over time, I just started eventually sharing my personal options trades. And it's just kind of like an added on thing. Like I never talked about doing options trades for premium when I first announced it. It just kind of, I just started doing it, and I guess it's been working out pretty well. But like the core thing around premium is swing trades. So to answer your question, yes, you get both. And I have shared a few options trades with everybody in the Discord. Can't remember all of them, but I did share some Fisker calls and Clover calls and some SPY puts, I think, at one point. I don't remember. Elon said Tesla won't sell Bitcoin a couple days. Now he's saying he might surprise us. Elon's, I don't know what he's doing right now. He's kind of all over the place. I mean, Elon went from being like the most loved idol in crypto to like half of everybody like not hates him, but are like disappointed in him for what happened last week. I'm not really going to comment on it too much. Okay. But yeah, I think I've answered most of the questions in the chat. I'm just trying to look up for people who've already typed tickers. But yeah, if you want me to look at something for you, drop your tickers in the chat and I'll take a look. Nothing I say is financial advice. Don't request something that I IPO'd last week. Don't request something that was up 5,000% last week, which probably was not much, but so we can just actually analyze the charts. All I already see there was a few tickers. Usually I only do the ones after I say it, but I'll just do the ones from before. Start off with DraftKings. I think Clover as well. Disc A. Let's see what. Give me a second. Disc A. And hold up. Gonna get all these tickers on my watch list so that we can easily take a look at them. Right. Let's type in the rest of them. Got Sun Clover earning tomorrow. I think they have earnings pre-market. I might be mistaken. I'm not too sure. The last earnings did not go too well. I think the chart on Clover looks good though. I don't know if I typed it in already. I did not. Okay, there. Clover's already on my watch list. INND. AFRM. Trade Desk. There was a harmonic on TTD. I don't know if it played out. Billion. I'm not gonna look at Playboy. It's just not much for me to chart there. I don't think there is, at least. And by the way, I don't even know if this is actually Playboy. It just says PLBY. I might be sounding like a clown for saying that. I think it is though. Let me see. PLBY group. It's not Playboy. Okay, it says we go over Playboy's Q1 earnings. I don't know what PLBY is. I think I saw that it was Playboy though. I might be completely wrong. What is Playboy's PLBY stock? Can somebody confirm this? It is Playboy's ticker. All right, thank you. All right, let's just start with this. I probably missed some tickers, but I don't want to waste too much time. So I'm gonna start off with DraftKings. You know, just remind me if I missed your ticker after I go through all of these first. Probably I just added like 15 or so. DraftKings was one of my biggest trades last week. It was an options trade, and I got into them on Friday morning, and by Friday afternoon they went up 90%. And I shared them with the premium members. It was amazing. You had a bullish deep crab PCZ and a bullish bat PCZ on the daily where it was bouncing at. The 1 hour looked good to me as well. I got into like literally 1 week out calls just to play it for a few days, and they did better than I thought they would, honestly. And DraftKings went up like 10%, options went up like 90%. I'm still holding them. I think I'm going to take profits soon just because I'm already up so much, but we'll see what happens. You do have a gap fill to $48 on DraftKings, but you also have gap fill to the downside at 38, so you're definitely closer to the upside gap fill. There's not much divergence. You just got a reaction at two different PCZs. We'll see if it can continue on. Another one was Sundial. I like this one quite a bit. It has 200-day moving average, triple classic bullish divergence on the RSI. It's at a support, 70 cents, held above it. Looks like a lot of other pot stocks, a lot of other growth stocks. Looks pretty good to me. I think another one was Clover, right over here. I think Clover was pretty easy to manage your risk. Another one I've been scanning. I mean, it looks pretty interesting to me. Hidden bullish divergence, falling wedge, trying to break out. But earnings are tomorrow, so we'll see how that, you know, affects things. As long as it's above 7, it looks fine. X, United States Steel. This was a premium trade. I cut it out when it was at a 26% profit, just because it had, what did it have? I think it broke this. No. It had, oh yeah, this was the candle. Yeah, so very easy candle analysis. It had a shooting star candle, kind of. It wasn't like perfect because it didn't have like a follow through perfectly, but It was a premium trade. The entry was 22. The initial target I wanted was 30 bucks, but it put in a bearish candle at around 28, so I just closed it out there. We walked away with a 27% profit on this one, and that was a good close because then it dropped all the way back down. That $25 support, pretty much $24.73, broke this first support, came down to the next one, put in a bullish pin bar candle on the 4-hour. Eventually it can show hidden bullish divergence, but there's a lot of work it needs to do. 24.73 is your high from over here, kind of your high from over here, even from right over there recently. I think it's another level from the past. Yeah, look at this. It was your high over here, your low over here. This is such an important ice line. It was your low over there, highs over here, low over here. Like 24.73 is such a huge support resistance level over time on X. As long as it can hold above it, I guess it could bounce off this bullish pin bar, but we'll see. You probably want that hidden bullish divergence to start developing. CLF might be back testing previous resistance as support. Already started to bounce a little bit towards Friday afternoon. I don't see much of a pattern or any divergence though, so that's really all I can talk about there. You just want to hold above 1880. NEO broke under the $34 support. It fell like 8% after that. Then it bounced up with the market on Friday. It was up 7%. I still want to see it get back above 34 because otherwise it could be like a break hook and go to the downside if it can't break it. So reclaim 34 on NEO and then we're talking, but you don't really have any divergence on the 4-hour or the daily because you made a lower low on the price and the oscillators. So got to get back above 34 on NEO. Disc A, this was another one I was scanning today. I think it looks pretty interesting. It's not like the best quality chart that I've seen from everything I looked at today, but it's a pretty nice one. Like, look at how insanely bad this negative momentum was. This was pretty much from the Archegos dump and had insane negative momentum, and now that it's creating this pretty much like the same low, you have way less negative momentum and it's already very close to going back to green. Even on the RSI, you made a higher low from this one to this one. So pretty much like class B, classic bullish divergence, same lows on price, less negative momentum on the oscillators. And you're above the 200-day moving average. This 34.65 level I think was also a high back from 2018. Hold above 34.65 and it looks good in my opinion. It was just another one that I scanned today. INND. I don't know if this is the right one. Yeah, it's an OTC. It's in a support area. I mean, really this, 1.5 cents to 1.4 cents. Like this range over here has been support 1, 2, 3 times, potentially 4 now. No divergence on the 4-hour. Potential, it's not really classic bullish divergence, but it looks good. I mean, technically you are at a higher low from this one, but it looks good. I like it as long as it can hold the support. So it's easy to manage your risk. I don't know how much risk that will be. It's about 20% risk, so that is quite a bit. But if you break that, then there's really nothing else to talk about until like 1 cent from your lows back in August of 2019. AFRM, there's not enough data on this chart for me to give you any technical answers or probabilities, not answers. Yeah, TTD, it has this bullish bat and it reversed. It didn't reverse, but like it's starting to react at the PCZ. Neutron Flux Labs with the $5 donations, with the $5 donation. Real ones are out here putting in the work on the weekend, studying. Absolutely. Skip this song. Thanks, Champ, for the options video. FTM, happy trading tomorrow. Get a coffee and a donut on me, King. Thank you very much for the coffee and donut. I'll make sure to do so tomorrow. Definitely the coffee. But appreciate it. Thank you for all the support in Neutron Flux Labs. And yeah, all of you are real ones for showing up, getting ready for the week even before it started for the market. Appreciate you. ETD, bounce at the PCZ. There is a gap fill up to like 625. There's not much else to talk about though. You don't have any divergence or like a pattern. So that's really it. You just want to hold above that 468 PCZ level. LEDs was up 34%. This is not really my trading style. I trade more stable charts, if that makes sense, but this is just something I usually don't touch. So sorry, but I can't really help you out there. AHT, it looked pretty interesting. It was up 10% on Friday. It's trying to fight to get back above that 200-day moving average. Really, the support is like 240, which you're well above. If you can break this 200-day moving average, I mean, it's a volatile one. There's not much resistance up until 341. I really don't see any important levels until then. So there was definitely a better entry area, but it's a low resistance if it can break over the 200-day moving average. Already had a nice day on Friday. Hillion, this has been on my watch list for a while. It's trying to double bottom around 790. This is not an actual trade, just how I'm looking at it. Pretty easy to manage your risk. Actually, I'd probably throw the stop loss under all-time lows. About 3.5 forward to risk, risking about 10%, and you just target the neckline of the double bottom potentially. Some RSI classic bullish divergence on the 4-hour and the daily, and classic bullish divergence on the MACD on the daily. So there's definitely an edge on this chart, and it's low risk, high reward. So if you like Hillion fundamentally, if you want to trade it, that's up to you. But there are variables on this chart. All it needs to do is hold above 790, which is pretty simple to assess. ASLN, eventually you can get classic bullish divergence, needs some work though. Probably look at it something like that. I mean, those are not perfect lines, but very, very volatile ticker. I think 284 is an important level you'd want to get back above. It was your lows over here, your highs over here, you're under it right now. So I want to see it get back above 284. Hopefully if the MACD goes back to green on the daily, it can have a nice rally. That was even your lows from the end of April. So that's the important level here. Not sure about a harmonic. I mean, skip that song. You could probably pull some sort of harmonic out of it, but regardless, I'm just going to look at it like a downsloping channel kind of, which you want to get back above that important level of 284. Ubo was up 12%. It had a great move on earnings last week, then like the day after, the 2 days after that, it went to fill a gap. Then it bounced back up on Friday with a lot of other things. It's breaking out of this supply line. You're still under the 200-day moving average. 2240 is a very big resistance. If it can ever break that, I mean, there's room up to like 2585 from those lows and this low. So definitely a better entry area, but things have been crushed just like many other growth stocks. You'll probably find a harmonic on this as well. You just want to hold above 1750 in my opinion from these lows and from May 13th lows. Skills, this was a failed trade last week, but I still think it looks good. So the classic bullish divergence still made a higher low double bottom at the PCZ of a bullish crab. Still looks good. I mean, if we go over to the 1 hour, it still is broken out of it. Like the thesis is actually still there. The price action did not work in the favor of their first trade, but it could be setting up for another trade. Another one that I scanned today. So how many growth stocks are doing this? Major bullish divergence with harmonics and double bottoms and supports and moving averages. Just add it to the list of good looking growth stocks based on technicals. Doesn't mean it's going to go up for sure, but again, you're looking for the low risk, high reward opportunities, and over time, hopefully that gives you nice gains. Next one, Boeing. Kind of just, I wouldn't say bow flagging because it's pretty steep, but in a down sloping channel. I would like to see it get back above like 231, which was your highs from like last summer, and your low on March 25th. So if it can reclaim 231, then you could probably just target the top of this channel. I don't think I'd use Fibonacci there, just not a huge move, and there's not crazy resistance in this area. I like the higher lows, the higher highs, the trend is nice. Just got to get back above 231, and it's really that simple. PLBY, I mean, there's not much to talk about on this chart at this point. Crazy run for sure. And bullish divergence is eventually possible on the daily, but it needs some work. There's not much to talk about. There's no patterns or anything like that based on technicals. It was up 16% on Friday. Congrats if you ran on this in earlier areas. Can't talk. Congrats. I'm not too sure here. I could see it going either way. To answer your question, there's technicals on any chart that has candles, but it's depending on your time frame. So if we're gonna look at PLBY on your daily, there are no signals. Okay, other than, like I said, the potential. If we go to the daily, the potential hidden bullish divergence, but like I said, it needs to get more work. You need to start waning more. So on major time frames, there is no pattern here. Maybe you want to call it a bull flag, but it's already breaking out of it, so it's not like that's like just developing now. There's really no support you can create when something is going straight up. We go to the 4 hours, the same exact thing, nothing really changes. Still have that potential hidden bullish divergence, like I said. But if we're gonna really look at this chart like we've looked at all the other tickers, you cannot create a clear pattern and a clear divergence at the current time. Of course, it's a chart, it has candles. If you go down to the lower time frames, that's where you get all the technicals. But as a swing trader, I don't really trade the lower time frames unless it's a day trade. And usually when I do ticker requests on the stream, I'm talking about looking at them as swings. I'm not really looking for day trades on the stream requests. So, answer your question, of course there's technicals on anything. I never said there wasn't. But what I mean by I don't really see any technicals at play here is I just simply mean for the things that I look for on a swing trade, there's not enough data or meaningful data on the timeframes that I look at to figure out a low risk, high reward opportunity based on the technical stuff. I never said anything about the fundamentals, never said anything about the trend. The trend is still beautiful, but that's just not what I do. So you can't understand that, I can't help you. Just some more clarification to answer your question or your comment. BJ, it's an important area. I mean, if it breaks above this, there's not a lot of resistance overhead. Nice accumulation on the higher lows, not much divergence here. So I'm not completely sure. Kind of, you could look at it like a rounding bottom, but this pump in the middle kind of throws it off. It's a nice trend. Not my type of trade. Earnings apparently on May 20th, so that could obviously change things to either direction. So not too sure there. SOS. Looks like it's in a falling wedge now. Classic bullish divergence does need some work for sure. 286 is some previous resistance areas, and you kind of bounced off of that, but you want to get back above the 200-day moving average. This might be a case where you might just want to wait for this to break out before entering it, just because of how ugly the downtrend is. So we gave it a shot, it didn't work out. Not too sure for now. It was up 6%, like a lot of other things on Friday. It's interesting. I'm keeping tabs on it. I just want to wait for some more confirmation on SOS. VRM, we've made some very good trades on this chart in the past. Around like, I think we were trading it around over here. I think it got sold off pre-earnings, and it's just really volatile. I mean, this whole entire range right over here is your support. Like between 32 to 35, you've bounced at it 1, 2, 3, 4 times now. But I don't really see much of a pattern or any. The MACD looks good, but it's not any textbook divergence on the 4 hour or on the daily. So I guess you just want to hold above that support range. VISL, this is not a trade, just another thing I was scanning for. Trying to double bottom now off of previous resistance areas. You have triple classic bullish divergence starting to develop on the daily. Looks like a lot of other small cap growth, mid cap stocks. Deep retraces, major divergence, major supports, back above the 200-day moving average. I like the technicals here. All you need to do is hold above your lows from last week. Just like a lot of other stocks, you just need to hold your lows from last week. It was up 11% on Friday. I like the chart right here. It's been in a very, very ugly downtrend ever since February, just like a lot of other growth mid-cap stocks. So it looks similar to many other things, but there are definitely bullish variables on the chart right now. Fiver, I'm not sure. I mean, this kind of just looks like a very big momentum shifting structure, potential like head and shoulders kind of. Broke under the 200-day moving average. Not a crazy amount of support because it went straight up, didn't really consolidate anywhere. Eventually classic bullish divergence is possible on the daily. I would just like to see it get back above 200. There's even a gap fill to like 199. It's just under supply. I like things to break above the supply, and especially when you don't have a lot of support to the downside, it's just, I'm not too sure. I mean, 129 is the next real support on high time frames based on this high and this low. You might find another support on lower time frames, but in terms of like a swing trade, I'm not too sure for now. I think there's better looking charts, but obviously anything can go up or down. Carnival, kind of bouncing at the bottom of a range. I was looking at this last week, actually for options. I even told everybody in premium, I was like, I'm looking at this for options, but I never really got into anything because it had like a fake out. When the market was pulling back, it broke under support. Then when the market went back up, it got right back over support. So, I mean, now it's already going, and it was up like 8% on Friday. A lot of travel stocks had a very nice day on Friday. And as long as it's above 25, which was your highs from last June, it looks fine. There's obviously a better entry area, but there's not a lot of resistance here. Viacom, I think it's a little bit under support. Let me see. Well, I guess 38.50 is the important level, and you're right above it. Let's go to the 4-hour. No divergence. You're just kind of chopping around at this support area in between support and 200-day moving average. Kind of neutral. But of course, this could be a reversal area. You could double bottom here. I would just like to see it start putting in higher highs and higher lows, at least on like the 1 hour. On the 1 hour, it's still just kind of going sideways. So definitely a lot of potential here, but I want to see it confirm a little bit more and maybe get some divergence. Baidu, I think this was also, yeah, I don't know why it took forever to load. This is another thing that I looked at, another growth stock with the harmonic and divergence and a double bottom. Can you be surprised that so many of these stocks have all the things that I look for? I'm surprised. It's another one, but earnings are coming up on May 18th according to TradingView this week, so that could shift things either way. So I'm just kind of holding off a little bit. There's a few other growth stocks that also have the same exact setup, but earnings are coming up soon. So kind of, there's a few different ways you can look at this XABCD structure, but regardless, you're trying to double bottom at the 786. Like if I just take everything off the chart and we forget about harmonics, you're still trying to double bottom around the 786 Fibonacci line. So, but you do have an XABCD structure, however you want to look at it and call it. Classic bullish divergence is developing. I mean, it's not really textbook because you didn't make a slightly higher high, but if you look at where like the candles were closing and opening and not just at the candle wicks, then you could argue it. As I do. TMBR. I think this is another one I was scanning. I looked at when I was scanning today. Like a lot of these tickers I looked at already today. It's at a lower risk area, but there still is room to the downside, which is kind of why I skipped over it. Like just to get back to your major support, there's another 17% room to the downside to get back to those lows. And that's just a really, really loose stop loss. I'm not in the mood for a 20% stop loss when I can go find something else with the same potential reward that has a tighter stop loss. So, I don't know. I feel like right now, there's not really a clear support area that it's at. It's just kind of reversing over here, which is fine. There is some divergence developing on the daily as well. It has a good amount of variables. It's not super clear to me how to manage your risk here based on supports. So that's going to be up to you. Run looks quite similar to a lot of other growth. We're going to use all the way down there as the low. That's pretty extended for a cipher. I don't think it can be that high. But again, it's like regardless of like a textbook harmonics, so many of these growth stocks are just showing that XABCD, the waves, the M patterns with the higher highs or the lower highs. It's just really interesting what's going on right now. In the case of Sunrun, you can make these trend lines look a little bit different. There's so many ways to interpret it. Just something like that. Kind of just a downsloping channel, broadening wedge, maybe try and find a falling wedge. Like there's so many different ways to look at it. I do think that $50 is an important level that it's well under. And obviously that's very far away. Next support's like 35.72 from your lows in July of last year. So I'm not too sure. I think there are better looking charts, but like I said earlier, anything can go up or down. All right, that's run. Futures still flat. Bitcoin still down 3% on the new day. Okay. Amount of tea. How do I screen for stocks? I use these two websites, Tradedics. This is the one I use the most. That's a lot of different. We talk about it a lot of times on stream, but I use these. I use Tradedics, then I use Finviz, which is like a very popular one. You just go over to the screener, and you can put in whatever you want. And then I also very rarely, but I mean, I do want to start using it more. I honestly should use it more. TradingView does have a pretty good scanner. Like you can mess with a lot of settings. So TradingView has its own good scanner. So yeah, all three of those. Let me close that up. Finviz, yeah, Finviz is very popular. AT&T, oh, we got some more tickers. Did TMBR, Roku, MT, CIM, T, possible Discovery merger. Not too sure about what's going on there. Roku, not an actual trade, just looking at it. Pretty close to a bullish crab. Hit the PCZ, bounced. I think there's maybe daily classic. Yeah, daily classic bullish divergence is developing. Above the 200, it bounced off the 200-day moving average. Looks good as long as it can hold above 293, but obviously there was a better entry area. And then your next resistance is like 374, like major resistance on the daily, 374. MT, kind of just running. I mean, I usually don't get in things after these crazy runs on like high time frames. But if you look at the 4-hour, sure, you could be bull flagging a little bit. Not much divergence. Not my type of trade, honestly. Very good trend, though. Well above whatever support line or trend line this is. Maybe it's starting to kind of create a broadening wedge. That's probably how I'd look at it. And then earnings already happened. It's interesting. Any previous? Yeah, you do. Okay. So 36 to 37 bucks is your next major resistance. I mean, you have a minor one right, like literally right here from these two highs. You're kind of just messing around at it. We go over to the weekly. Yeah, like this whole entire zone could be a reversal area, but if you end up breaking it, like who knows what this could turn into. It looks like a major double bottom on the weekly. Just, it would obviously take a long time because it's a weekly, but like, you know, 37 is like your first major resistance on the weekly, then you're literally like 53 because it's so up, down between those two numbers. But obviously that's the weekly time frame. So CIM up 10%. Same exact thing like I was talking about on Playboy. Again, if you want to be super critical of my wording, you can be, but 99% of the people watching the stream get what I'm saying. I don't know who requested this. This was Brad. I'm just talking to NASCAR right now. Like, if you want to be super critical of my wording, I don't know exactly what I said, but look, like, this is the point I'm talking about. On things like this, that's not my personal trading style. I look for things with a lot more data in order to use technical analysis on. So, of course, if you want to be very critical of wording, yes, anything that has a chart, you can look for technicals on very little time frames. But if we're looking at the time frames that I look at, and if we're looking at the time frames that I base my technical analysis off of, there's not much to talk about here. If you don't understand that, like I said, I can't help you. I'm not going to keep reiterating myself. We've been talking about this for weeks. I don't hate your trading style. If you want to hate on mine, that's fine, but you don't have to, like, you know, be super, what's the word? Just like, it's fine. Like, it's all good. It's not that deep. That's like what I want to say. It's not that deep. You know, can't be emotional about trading. If somebody else trades differently, let them. You know, however you're making money, make your money. That's all I gotta say. This is just not my way to make money, and that's fine. So hopefully everybody understands that. AT&T, it broke over this range above 32, which is nice. That's a very major breakout. Next major resistance is 33.27, and then your support's 31.82. There was hidden bullish divergence that did play out. Not much divergence right now. And yes, AT&T. Futures pulling back a little bit, still relatively flat. Bitcoin. Just want to see this daily MACD start waning. I just feel like, I mean, I don't feel like it, but like there's obviously a chance that I wake up tomorrow morning and Bitcoin's up 5% and then I miss putting out a trade right here. So I'm kind of conflicted on whether or not to put out a trade right here. It's just like there's no daily divergence developing yet. So if I'm going to stick to my plan, it's not time to put out a trade, but this is a potential reversal area. So I don't know. I'll always rather safe than sorry. So I'll just wait. If we have to buy a little bit higher to put out a trade, it's fine. It's already been dropping a lot. Looked at Roku. What do you think about IDEX with earnings coming after hours tomorrow? I don't know too much about IDEX, so I can't help you out there, unfortunately. FCX, SCCL. But yeah, make sure to hit that like button if you're still watching, and if you're enjoying the stream, hit that subscribe button as well if you're new to the stream. And yeah, check out all the links in the description for more info on everything that I do. FCX kind of broke to the upside of this wedge. Crazy good trend. We go out to the weekly. Really like $43 to $44 has been a reversal area from over here. You break that, then like you're talking like anywhere in this range from your highs in 07, 08, 2010. So it's at a make or break area. It did pull back quite a bit last week with the market, but it's still very well in an uptrend on super high time frames. That's FCX, SCCO. This one's pretty interesting. So it had this downsloping channel. It broke out of it and now it's back testing the previous resistance as a potential support, or a supply line as a potential demand line. I don't see any divergence or any patterns other than like this channel that I broke out of. It's pretty much around all-time highs on the weekly relative to where it used to be. And your not major support, but the support that I do see on the daily is like around 72 bucks from your highs in the beginning of the year. You do have do you have a gap fill? You have you do have a gap fill like 73 as well. So it's either like hold this and you could keep running, or you might go back down and retest $71 to $72. We know who the one dislike it. Again, I'm here to do what I do. If people can't appreciate that, that's not my fault. I'm not hating on anybody else, so just stay in my lane, let things happen. Just gotta block out the noise, right? But I try to be very respectful to everybody in the stream, so it is what it is. Would you glance at the IDEX chart? Yeah, sure. IDEX towards the bottom of this range again. Earnings, we don't know. I don't know how that's gonna go. It's still above the 200-day moving average. The technicals look good. Like you have triple classic bullish divergence developing. You have classic bullish divergence on the RSI. You're at the bottom of the range. You're right above the 200-day moving average. Like nice technical setup, low risk, high reward. But it's just like, again, who knows with earnings? That's why I don't personally trade around earnings, because I'm looking for things that are very quiet that can make big moves based on technicals. But when you have earnings, like it could make a big move. It could do nothing. It could make a big move to either way. Like there's so many different potential variables that I just can't forecast, that I'm not too sure. But the important level is like 220 if you're looking at the chart. See, futures still around the same price. What's the vibes now that you're on vacation? You're saying me, or if you're talking to somebody else who's on vacation? I'm not on vacation right now, but I will be next week. Vacation next week. Let's see. Appreciate it. Just want to see what you share is. Yeah, for sure. Got you. Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll be streaming next week. I'm definitely streaming all of this week. Next week, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be in 2 different places next week. So I might stream, I might not. I'll figure it out later. But it's not like too hard for me to stream. It's just like, I don't know if I want to bring my monitor and my camera and my mouse and my mic. It's just like, maybe not. We'll see. Option video was amazing as always. Thank you. Got you. Appreciate the support. Definitely want to do more educational videos. That options video definitely took too long for me to put out. Finally just did it though. A lot of procrastination on that one. Do you see the 4-hour Class A hidden bearish divergence? I'll look at those stickers in a second, NASCAR. Class A on the futures. Yeah, it's developing. I was looking at this earlier as well. It's definitely developing. And then on the 1 hour, on the actual S&P 500, there's the same exact thing happening. So it's there, and you're at a previous support flipping into a resistance right now. It's not the best looking for now, but then again, you have the daily, which can contradict that, because it can eventually start. I mean, it is for now developing hidden bullish divergence. So contradicting time frames and variables, I'm just neutral. If we're talking about like midterm to long term. And then if we go to the 1 hour on the actual S&P, it's the same exact thing. So you can see there's your hidden bearish divergence developing at a previous support zone. Maybe we'll flip into a resistance zone. We'll find out in the next 2 days or so. Let's see. UPC, FLGC. Like I've said before multiple times, not my type of trading style. I like things with more data on them. I don't know anything about this company, so not gonna repeat myself again. FLGC, not gonna repeat myself again. There's not much that I can do here on high time frames based on my personal trading style. Let's see. Rising wedge on Bitcoin. On what time frame? Let's just do a clear chart. Rising wedge. I don't think you can have a rising wedge on the daily. I mean, I don't know how you'd even have a rising wedge on the lower time frames too, because you're going down in price. I'm not too sure. You probably have to like send a picture to the Discord and like at me, because I don't really know. I don't see a rising wedge anywhere, but you might be looking at it in a different way, and I'm not looking at it like that. So I'm not too sure. Thank you for the $10 super chat, Mark. I don't know why it's not popping up. It should pop up. Hopefully it does soon. No? I'm just gonna, alright, I'll just read it. Hopefully it does pop up. But Mark Cash with the $10 super chat following. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Great timing. Thank you for the $10. Following since the OG Fisker setup, learned a lot. Much thanks. Awesome. Glad to have you around. Appreciate all the people who have been here ever since then. It's been 7 months? It's been about 7 months, I'd say, since that original Fisker setup, which is crazy. It does not feel like that long, but it is, which is wild. So appreciate the $10. Mark Cash, thank you very much. Yeah, legendary times. But yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot. Futures pulling back a little bit more, but again, it's not too bad. It's, NASDAQ futures are down 0.23%. S&P futures are down 0.21%. So it's fine. Hopefully it stays fine overnight, but we'll see. Even if we have a red day in the market tomorrow, I still think that actually might be an opportunity on a lot of stocks that were up like crazy on Friday and I'm looking for dips on. But still just relatively neutral. So a lot more to uncover in the coming days, which we will. Good luck to everybody in the week, or everybody in the market this week. Hope you crush it. And yeah, check out the options video if you didn't. I dropped a 1 hour video on options earlier today. It's the last video on my channel. I even put timestamps in case you don't want to watch the full 1 hour and you just want to watch a specific part. I put timestamps. They're like the pinned comment, and also if you use the scroll bar, you should be able to see them. So check that video out. Check out the links in the description. Thank you for all the likes. Hit the like button if you didn't already. Hit the subscribe button if you didn't already. Check out the links in the description. And yeah, I'll be live again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. EST. So I'll see you there. Have a good night. Peace out.